What's up, YouTubers? Welcome to Filmmaking Fridays on the Asian Filmmaker. I am your host, Jason. Now, today we're obviously not on my set behind me because today I want to do a first impressions video of the Panasonic GH4. So yesterday I got to play around with it. A good friend of mine and colleague, Johnny Wu of MDI, link down below, check him out. He just got his Panasonic GH4 in, and he called me up and said, hey, if you want to come over and check it out, play around with it for a while, be my guest. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I played around with it for about 2.5 to 3 hours or so, and as I was playing around with it, I jotted down some notes, which are on my screen, so I'm going to be looking up and down. And these are the features and my first impressions of what I loved about the Panasonic GH4. So here we go. Just for reference, I've only shot on a T3i and T2i, so that is all I've ever known, aside from camcorders, but that's all I've ever known, and I'm now shifting over to looking at a much finer piece of tech. So, first thing I noticed, obviously a really bright screen, great pixel density, so it's nice and sharp. You can see just about everything you need to see on it, even out in the sunlight. Great, love the screen. And it's a touchscreen, capacitive, so it worked really well as a touchscreen. Focus peaking. The focus peaking feature is something I'm very excited about, having it being built in camera, because up until now I've had to use Magic Lantern, and Magic Lantern does a good job, but it doesn't do a great job all the time. And the focus peaking inside the Panasonic GH4 did very well. I was able to see exactly what I was in focus on. And the great thing was, when you're outside in the bright light, the light straight behind you, as I tested, even though the image is washed out, you just tilt the screen slightly down and you can still see the focus peaking lines moving back and forth. So if you're out in bright light, you don't have an external monitor or anything like that, you can still pull focus decently well, even outside, without any help. The digital markings when you're using a micro four thirds lens. So we were specifically using the Sigma 19mm f2.8, and it doesn't have any focus markings on the actual lens. Rather, it is all done digitally on an overlay inside the camera. It was down on the bottom. And what I love about this feature is I'm a solo shooter. Like, I do everything just by myself. I have no help. So for me to be able to rack focus and be able to see the meter on the screen was something that I would love. Now, obviously, I would love to have a focus puller. That way I can focus on framing and composition. But if you're only shooting by yourself, you can definitely look at the framing of your shot, the composition of how you're moving, and also pulling focus all at the exact same time right there on the screen. I thought that was great. The low light capabilities of this was very, very phenomenal. We shot at 4K while we were testing at 6400 in a fairly dim room. I would say it's a little bit brighter than like one of those dim cafes, but at 6400 we noticed that obviously there was noise. You're obviously going to get noise. However, the noise was very fine. It wasn't big and chunky like you would see on my Canon if I jacked it up to 6400. So that tells me that if I put a denoiser, if I pass it through a denoise filter like Neat Video, even at 6400, I will still get an image that I can use, and that's just great, because on a Canon I will not shoot past 640 ISO. So for me to be able to get 6400 ISO, that's just insane, and I'm loving it. I love that factor. Next are my lenses. So after we were done with the Sigma, I started playing around with the lens that I had, and the first one that I threw on there was the Canon kit lens from 18mm to 55mm, and here's what wowed me. So that lens was meant for an APS-C, and then for a micro four thirds it's just a little bit, so I have a tiny little crop factor added to it. So when I walked around with it, I was amazed at what the image looked like, how much reach I was able to get with that 18 to 55, it's just a little bit more and I would say that I would not hesitate to let that just be my walk-around lens as far as doing events and video for documentaries and stuff, because I had a nice good reach and I like those focal lengths for that type of work. So I would keep my kit lens around if I got the GH4 tomorrow. I threw on my manual lenses as well, my 24mm 2.8 and my 135 2.8. had no problems with it. It looked just fine. Focus peaking worked just fine on those lenses. And the great thing about these mirrorless cameras that are coming out, if you don't know already, is that they have a really small flange distance between the sensor and where the lens mount is. And all cameras before that had a really big flange distance. So you can pretty much adapt any type of lens from 70s, 80s, all the way to the modern ones just fine. You just need to buy an adapter to change the flange distance a little bit and you're set. So awesome on that part. These last two features are by far something that I love and definitely am very excited about if I'm ever able to get the GH4. First one is Wi-Fi. If you have an iOS device, and I'm assuming Android, you just have to download the Panasonic's app. You pair it up with a phone. You don't actually have to be in a Wi-Fi network per se. You just need a, sync the two devices together. The great thing about this is there was pretty much no lag. There was a little bit, but not enough to make you say, oh, this is unusable. So I was able to see what the camera was doing in pretty much near real time on my phone. And I can change the settings. I can hit record, I can stop recording, change the ISO, and all that other good stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, I shoot a lot of stage events, and if I had the money today and got 4 GH4s and just placed them all around the theater, focusing on the stage, if the stage light changes, I know that I can't be like, oh crap, like the ISO was set for a very brightly lit scene. No, I have my phone, pop, change what I need, and I'm set to go. As a one-man production, that is just something, it's priceless. That tool alone is priceless. So I'm very excited about that. Panasonic, you did a great job. Thank you. And the last one is battery life. I talk about battery life in my past videos, and I've talked about how I've created my own external battery with a Sony battery that allows me to shoot for hours on my T3i. So let me give you a scope as to what we did with just one battery that was fully charged. By the time I got there, Johnny had already been playing around with it as far as doing photo mode and stuff for probably about 30 minutes. And when I got there, we messed around with it a little bit more. So when we started shooting the 4K video, we left it shooting 4K for 30 minutes. 30 minutes straight, we didn't cut it, we just let it do its own thing. And after that, I ran around with it, doing my tests on it and checking it out, blah, 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 blah. So after about 3 or so hours of having shot 4K and doing other things in 4K, doing video and stuff, the battery still read full. That is insane. I mean, I can't imagine how much information was flying between the cards and stuff and what the battery had to do to shoot at 4K for that long, and then let alone being on the rest of the time. If I did that with my T3i, like shot for 30 minutes straight at just a 1080 video, there's no way any of my batteries would have said that it was still full. So I don't know what exactly is in those batteries. I haven't looked at the specs yet, but yeah, that battery is great. The battery life on this thing is great. If I'm thinking to myself right now, if I bought the GH4, I'd probably just buy 2 more extra batteries and I would call it good. Like I could shoot probably the whole day on that camera with just those batteries and I would be fine. I'm lying. I probably would get 3 more and have 4 total, just because I always want to be on the safe side. But I'm thinking that at 3 you'll be just fine. So that is it. Those are my first impressions of the Panasonic GH4, and all I have to say is, wow, Panasonic, you guys did a really, really great job. You listened to the market, you took everything that people wanted, and you put it into a nice package at only $1,700 for the body, because I'm assuming most people already have lenses. But at $1,700, shooting 4K, great battery life, Wi-Fi is awesome, focus peaking is available, the ability to adapt to a bunch of different lenses and still be okay. I mean, my gosh, this is a great investment for a filmmaker that's already been around for a while, because it's not really hard to learn the menus of the GH4 and the settings. You'll do that just fine. I feel like this is almost like a future-proof body for, not future-proof, but it'll last you a while, because 4K is still relatively new, and certain people are shooting at 4K already and delivering content like that on YouTube or on their own personal servers and stuff. Obviously, Hollywood has been using pretty high resolution stuff for a while, but for the consumer to be able to go into that at such a great price point I think you'll be set for a good while before you feel like you need to upgrade your body. So Panasonic, I thank you. I thank you for creating the GH4. You guys did a phenomenal job. And for all my viewers out there, should you get the GH4? I would say yes. If you've been looking at getting a new body, go for it. It's great. I know if you're a full frame shooter, you might say, oh, but don't worry about it. Crop sensor, it only gets in the way so much, but not enough to say I'd rather spend, $3,000 to $4,000 on this one body than to go at the GH4. So if you have any questions about the GH4 on my first impressions, or any comments that you want to shoot at me, hit them down below in the comments, or find me on Twitter, get me on Facebook. It does not matter. I would be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this first impressions video. I'm sorry that it's just me talking here, but I will see you next Monday.